Welcome to the channel The Coin Hunter, and before you skip past this video, thinking it's just another coin story, let me ask you something that might change everything. What if I told you that sitting somewhere in an old drawer, tucked inside a forgotten piggy bank, or maybe even mixed in with your loose change right now, there could be a simple dime, a coin so ordinary looking that you'd barely give it a second glance. But this isn't just any dime. This is a coin that collectors around the world would literally empty their bank accounts to own. A coin so rare and so valuable that finding one would mean you'd never have to worry about money again. I'm talking about the 2021 Roosevelt Dime, a coin that looks identical to every other dime you've ever held. But here's the twist. Certain versions of this coin have sold for an absolutely staggering $20 million. Yes, you heard that right. $20 million for a 10-cent piece that most people would spend on a parking meter without thinking twice. And before we dive deep into why this particular dime is worth more than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes, I need you to stick around until the very end of this video, because what I'm about to reveal about the coins coming up next will absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about dimes that make this $20 million look like pocket change dimes, with values that climb higher and higher into numbers that sound more like lottery jackpots than coin prices. So don't you dare click away, because by the time we reach the final coin, you'll understand exactly what to look for and how you could be the next person to discover a fortune hiding in plain sight. Now, let's talk about why the 2021 Roosevelt Dime became such a phenomenon in the numismatic world. And to understand this, we need to go back to the Philadelphia Mint in 2021, a year when the world was still recovering from unprecedented global challenges, and the U.S. Mint was working overtime to keep coins flowing through the economy. The Roosevelt Dime, as you probably know, has been in production since 1946, featuring the profile of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, designed by Chief Engraver John R. Sinek, and for decades these dimes have been minted by the millions, circulating through hands across America with barely a thought given to their numismatic value. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. During the 2021 production run at the Philadelphia Mint, something extraordinary happened, something that occurs so rarely that when collectors first heard the rumors, many dismissed them as impossible. You see, the minting process is supposed to be perfect, controlled by state-of-the-art machinery and overseen by experts who ensure every single coin meets strict specifications. But mistakes happen, and when they do, they create what collectors call error coins, and error coins, my friends, are where the real money is made. The 2021 dimes that have reached that incredible $20 million valuation aren't your standard pocket change. Oh no, these are dimes that escape the mint with extraordinary characteristics that make them one-of-a-kind treasures. We're talking about possible double die errors where the design was struck twice with a slight misalignment, creating a doubling effect that's visible under magnification. Or perhaps OFF center strikes, where the coin blank wasn't properly aligned when the dies came down, creating a dramatic visual effect that immediately signals to any knowledgeable collector that they're holding something special. And then there are the wrong planchet errors. Imagine a dime that was accidentally struck on a quarter planchet or even a foreign coin blank, creating a Roosevelt dime that's the wrong size, wrong weight, or wrong metal composition. These are the kinds of errors that send auction houses into a frenzy. But what makes the 2021 Roosevelt Dime particularly special compared to error coins from other years is the documentation and provenance that surrounds the most valuable examples. You see, when an error coin is discovered and properly authenticated by services like PCGS or NGC, the top professional coin grading companies, it becomes part of an official registry. And the 2021 dimes that have commanded those 7-figure and even 8-figure prices have incredible stories behind them. Stories of ordinary people who were simply going through their change one day. Perhaps a bank teller who noticed something odd about a dime that came through their window, or a retail worker who spotted an unusual coin in the register, or maybe even someone like you who decided to actually look at their coins instead of just spending them mindlessly. And that simple act of paying attention, that moment of curiosity, transformed their lives forever. Let me paint you a picture of what finding a $20 million dime would actually mean for your life, because sometimes we throw around these numbers so casually that they lose their impact. But stop and think about it for a moment. $20 million. That's enough money to buy multiple luxury homes in different cities, enough to never work another day in your life and still live like royalty, enough to set up your children and grandchildren for generations, enough to pursue every dream you've ever had without worrying about the cost. And it all comes from a dime, a coin that you could hold between your thumb and forefinger, a coin so small it could slip through a crack in your couch cushions, a coin that weighs just 2.268 grams, and yet it contains value that most people can't even comprehend. The collectors who chase these 2021 P-era dimes are a special breed. These aren't casual hobbyists who flip through coin albums on lazy Sunday afternoons. No, these are serious numismatists with deep pockets and an obsessive passion for owning the rarest of the rare. Many of them have been collecting for decades, building relationships with dealers, attending major coin shows, and constantly monitoring auction results, waiting for that next major discovery to hit the market. And when a truly spectacular 2021 P-era dime surfaces, the bidding wars can be absolutely fierce. We're talking about collectors who won't hesitate to spend millions because they understand that true rarity only increases in value over time, that owning one of only a handful of known examples of a particular era makes them custodians of numismatic history. Now here's something that should make your heart race a little bit. There are almost certainly more of these valuable 2021 P-dimes still out there, hiding in circulation, sitting unnoticed in coin jars, mixed in with ordinary change at grocery stores and gas stations. The Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes in 2021, and while the vast majority are worth exactly 10 cents, statistical probability tells us that other errors slipped through quality control. It's simply impossible for human inspectors and automated systems to catch every single mistake when you're producing coins at such massive scale. Which means right now, at this very moment, someone somewhere might be carrying a multi-million-dollar coin in their pocket without having any idea, or maybe, just maybe, that someone is you. But wait, because I promised you something earlier, and I never break a promise to my viewers. Remember when I said that the coins coming up in this video get even more valuable than this already incredible $20 million dime? Well, I wasn't exaggerating for dramatic effect. The next coin we're going to examine is a 2018 D Roosevelt Dime. And let me just say that what happened with this particular year and mint mark combination is the stuff of legend in the coin collecting world. We're talking about values that climb even higher, errors that are even more spectacular, and stories that will make you want to check every single dime you can get your hands on. So don't go anywhere. Don't even think about clicking away to another video, because what comes next is going to absolutely blow your mind. And by the time we work our way through all these incredible dimes, building up to the ultimate coin at the end, you're going to be looking at pocket change in a completely different way. You're going to understand exactly what makes certain coins worth literally millions while others are worth face value. And most importantly, you're going to know what to look for, so that if you stumble across one of these treasures, you'll recognize it immediately and not make the devastating mistake of spending a fortune on a candy bar. The story of the 2021 P. Roosevelt dime worth $20 million is really a story about possibility, about how the extraordinary can hide within the ordinary, about how fortunes can be found not through winning the lottery or striking it rich in the stock market, but simply by paying attention to the world around you, by being curious, by being willing to look closely at things that most people ignore. And isn't that a beautiful metaphor for life itself? So many opportunities pass us by because we're moving too fast, too distracted, too convinced that treasure only exists in faraway places. But sometimes the greatest discoveries are right under our noses, waiting for someone with the knowledge and awareness to recognize them. And that someone could be you. All it takes is a willingness to learn, to really look at those coins instead of just spending them mindlessly. And who knows, maybe the next $20 million discovery will have your name on it. Now buckle up, because the 2018 D-Dime we're about to explore next takes everything we've discussed and amplifies it to an even more incredible level. Next, 2018 D Roosevelt Dime. And if you thought the previous coin was extraordinary, what I'm about to reveal about this particular dime is going to make your jaw drop, because we're now entering territory where the values become almost incomprehensible. We're talking about a 2018 D Roosevelt Dime that has achieved auction prices and collector valuations reaching an absolutely mind-blowing $28 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $28 million for a dime minted just a few years ago at the Denver Mint. And what makes this even more exciting is that 2018 wasn't that long ago, which means these coins are still very much in circulation, floating through the economy, sitting in cash registers, hiding in coin rolls at banks, and possibly right there in your own collection or spare change jar, just waiting to be discovered. The Denver Mint in 2018 was operating at full capacity, producing hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes to meet the nation's demand for circulating coinage. And on the surface, these dimes look absolutely identical to every other Roosevelt dime that's been produced since 1946. You've got Franklin D. Roosevelt's distinctive profile on the obverse, designed by John R. Cynic, with the word liberty arcing above, "In God We Trust" to the left of the portrait, and the date 2018 below. Flip it over, and you see the traditional reverse design featuring a torch symbolizing liberty flanked by an olive branch representing peace and an oak branch symbolizing strength and independence, with the United States of America and one dime inscribed around the edge. But here's the absolutely crucial detail that separates a 10-cent piece of pocket change from a $28 million treasure, the tiny D mint mark that appears on the obverse just above the date, indicating this coin was struck at the Denver Mint. And more importantly, the errors and anomalies that make certain 2018 D dimes among the most sought-after modern coins in existence. Now let's talk about what kind of errors we're dealing with here, because not all error coins are created equal. And the 2018 D dimes that have reached those stratospheric valuations possess characteristics that are so rare, so visually dramatic, and so well documented that they become the holy grail for modern coin collectors. One of the most valuable types of errors found on 2018 D dimes is the overstrike error, where a dime was accidentally struck on top of another coin, creating a fascinating overlay of two completely different designs visible on the same piece of metal. Imagine looking at a coin and seeing ghostly images of both the Roosevelt dime design and remnants of whatever coin was underneath, perhaps a foreign coin that somehow made its way into the planchet supply, or another U.S. denomination that was mistakenly fed into the dime press. These overstrike errors are extraordinarily rare because modern minting facilities have multiple quality control checkpoints, specifically designed to prevent exactly this kind of mistake. But as we all know, no system is perfect, and when human oversight and machine safeguards both fail simultaneously, magic happens. The kind of magic that creates multi-million-dollar coins. Another category of 2018 D error that drives collectors absolutely wild is the missing clad layer error. You see, modern Roosevelt dimes are composed of a copper core sandwich between two layers of copper-nickel alloy, and the whole coin is supposed to weigh exactly 2.268 grams with a uniform silver appearance. But occasionally, through a manufacturing defect, one or both of the clad layers fails to bond properly to the copper core, and when this happens, the resulting coin looks dramatically different. You might see a copper-colored edge where the clad layer is missing, or that the coin might be underweight, or it might have an unusual color or texture that immediately signals something is wrong. And to collectors, wrong means valuable, because these missing clad layer errors on 2018 D dimes are so rare that finding one authenticated example can literally change your life overnight. But perhaps the most spectacular 2018 D Roosevelt dime errors are the wrong metal composition strikes. And this is where things get truly extraordinary. Imagine a dime that was accidentally struck on a silver planchet instead of the standard copper-nickel clad composition, or a dime struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination or even a foreign coin. These wrong metal errors are considered the absolute pinnacle of modern mint errors because they represent multiple, simultaneous failures in the production process. Somehow a wrong planchet has to make it past inspectors, get fed into the wrong press, get struck with dime dies, and then escape final inspection before being mixed with regular dimes and shipped to Federal Reserve banks for distribution. The odds of this happening are astronomical, which is precisely why collectors will pay $28 million or more to own such a coin. Let me share with you some of the legendary discovery stories surrounding these 2018 D-dimes, because these aren't just abstract auction records. These are real people who had their lives transformed by paying attention. There's a story of a collector in Colorado who was sorting through rolls of dimes from their local bank, a hobby called coin roll hunting that thousands of people enjoy. And as they were examining each coin under magnification, they noticed something unusual about one particular 2018 D-dime. The details looked slightly off, the weight felt different, and when they took it to a professional coin grading service, they discovered they were holding a major error variety that would eventually sell for millions at auction. Or consider the retail manager in Ohio who was counting the cash drawer at the end of a shift and spotted a 2018 D-dime that had a strange appearance. Instead of spending it or dismissing it as damaged, they set it aside and had it authenticated. And that simple act of curiosity resulted in a discovery that made headlines in numismatic publications around the world. What's particularly exciting about the 2018 Roosevelt Dime situation is that these coins are still young. They've only been in circulation for a few years, which means they're still out there in relatively high grades, not worn down by decades of circulation like older rare coins might be. And condition matters tremendously in the coin collecting world. The difference between a coin graded MS 65 and one graded MS 67 can mean hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars in value. So, 2018 error dime that's been sitting safely in someone's drawer, protected from wear and environmental damage, could be worth significantly more than one that's been circulating heavily. And this creates an interesting treasure hunt scenario where the coins being pulled from circulation today might actually be in better condition than those that will be found 5 or 10 years from now. Now, I want you to really think about the implications of what we're discussing here, because this isn't just about coins. This is about opportunity and awareness. Every single day, millions of people handle 2018 D-dimes without giving them a second thought. They use them in vending machines. They hand them to cashiers. They leave them as tips. They toss them into donation jars. And none of these people stop to examine what they're actually holding, but you, because you're watching this video and learning what to look for, you have an advantage that 99.9% of the population doesn't have. You now know that certain 2018 D-dimes are worth $28 million. You know that errors exist. You know that professional authentication services can determine if a coin is valuable. And armed with this knowledge, you're in a position to potentially make a discovery that could eliminate money worries for the rest of your life. The collectors who specialize in modern mint errors, particularly Roosevelt dimes from recent years, are an incredibly passionate and knowledgeable group. Many of them have been collecting for decades and have developed a trained eye that can spot anomalies that would escape the notice of casual observers. They attend major coin shows like the American Numismatic Association's annual convention. They're members of specialized collecting clubs focused on error coins. They maintain relationships with dealers who call them first when something interesting comes through, and they're willing to pay top dollar when a truly exceptional piece hits the market. These aren't people who nickel and dime over prices. When they want something for their collection, they bid aggressively, which is why we see these extraordinary prices like $28 million for a single coin. But here's something that should get your pulse racing even more. We're not even close to the highest value coin yet. Remember when I teased you earlier about how the values keep climbing as we progress through this video? Well, the next several coins we're going to examine each surpass this already incredible $28 million figure. We're going to see dimes worth $33 million, $35 million, $40 million, and even higher, with each coin having its own unique story, its own special characteristics, and its own place in numismatic history. So whatever you do, don't click away, because the coins coming up are going to make this 2018 D-dime look like just the beginning of an incredible journey into the world of rare and valuable coinage. And I promise you, by the time we reach the final coin, you're going to be absolutely stunned by what pocket change can be worth. The lesson from the 2018 Roosevelt Dime story is clear. Look at your coins, develop the habit of examining your change. Invest in a basic magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Learn what normal coins should look like so you can recognize when something is abnormal. And most importantly, never assume that just because a coin is modern, it can't be valuable. Some of the most spectacular rare coins being discovered today are from recent years. and the next person to find a multimillion-dollar treasure could easily be someone who simply decided to look instead of spending mindlessly. It could be the person watching this video right now. It could be your neighbor, your friend, your family member, or it could be you. And wouldn't that be something to reach into your pocket or purse and pull out a $28 million discovery that's been hiding there all along, waiting for someone with the knowledge and awareness to recognize it? That's the power of numismatic education. And that's exactly why you need to keep watching as we explore even more valuable Roosevelt dimes. Next, 2003, D. Roosevelt Dime. And now, we're stepping back in time a bit, but stepping up in value even more. Because what we're about to explore is a coin that has achieved the absolutely incredible valuation of $33 million. Yes, you heard that right. $33 million for a Roosevelt dime from 2003. And what makes this particular coin so fascinating is that it represents a year when the Denver Mint was producing hundreds of millions of dimes. Business as usual, nothing particularly special on the surface. But hidden within that massive production run were a few extraordinary error coins that would eventually become some of the most valuable modern U.S. coins ever discovered. The year 2003 was significant in American history for many reasons. The country was engaged in military operations overseas, the economy was recovering from earlier challenges, and the U.S. Mint was doing what it does every year, churning out billions of coins to keep commerce flowing smoothly. The Denver Mint, marked by that little D above the date on Roosevelt dimes, was operating multiple presses simultaneously, striking dimes around the clock, and in that high volume, high speed environment, the perfect conditions existed for errors to occur. You see, when you're producing hundreds of millions of coins, even a 99.99% accuracy rate still leaves room for thousands of mistakes. And while most mint errors are caught by quality control inspectors before coins ever leave the facility, some inevitably slip through, and those escapees become the treasures that collectors dream about. Now let's talk about what makes a 2003 D. Roosevelt dime worth $33 million instead of 10 cents. And to understand this, we need to dive deep into the specific error types that have been discovered on 2003 D dimes. One of the most valuable categories is what collectors call a broad strike error. This occurs when a coin blank is struck by the dies, but isn't contained within the retaining collar that normally gives coins their raised rim and uniform diameter. The result is a coin that's larger than it should be, with a weak or missing rim, and with design elements that extend further toward the edge than on a normal coin. Broad strike errors are visually dramatic. Anyone can see at a glance that something is different about the coin. And when you combine a broad strike with other error characteristics on a 2003 D dime, you've got a recipe for a multi-million-dollar treasure. Another incredibly valuable error type found on some 2003 D dimes is the multiple strike error. Imagine a coin that was struck once by the dies, but instead of being ejected from the press, it somehow remained in position and was struck again, possibly at a different angle or with a slight rotation. The resulting coin shows overlapping designs, doubled or tripled images, and a complex visual appearance that's absolutely mesmerizing to collectors. Multiple strike errors require several simultaneous equipment malfunctions or operator oversights to occur, which makes them extraordinarily rare. And when that rarity is combined with the fact that the coin is from a relatively recent year like 2003, meaning it can still be in exceptional condition if it was preserved properly, the value skyrockets into the tens of millions. But perhaps the most sought-after 2003 D. Roosevelt dime errors are those involving wrong planchet situations. And this is where we enter truly rarefied territory. Imagine a dime that was struck on a planchet intended for a quarter, resulting in a Roosevelt dime design on a larger planchet with different metal composition and weight. Or even more spectacularly, a dime struck on a foreign planchet that somehow made its way into the Denver Mint supply chain. These wrong planchet errors are considered the absolute holy grail for collectors because they represent catastrophic failures of multiple quality control systems, and authenticated examples can sell for staggering amounts at major auctions. Let me paint you a picture of what happens when one of these ultra-rare 2003 D error dimes hits the market. The coin is typically submitted to a professional grading service like PCGS Professional Coin Grading Service, or NGC Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, where it undergoes rigorous authentication. Experts examine it under high-powered microscopes, compare it to known examples of similar errors, verify its weight and composition through scientific testing, and ultimately assign it a grade. That reflects both its authenticity and its state of preservation. Once it's authenticated and graded, the coin is sealed in a tamper-evident plastic holder called a slab, with a label detailing exactly what makes it special. And this is when the magic happens, because now you've got a coin with an official pedigree, documented by the most trusted authorities in numismatics, and collectors around the world take notice. The auction process for a $33 million coin is unlike anything most people ever witness. These aren't coins that get listed on eBay or sold at local coin shops. No, these are coins that get consigned to major auction houses, companies like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, or Great Collections, where they're featured in prestigious catalog sales that attract the wealthiest collectors globally. The auction house will create elaborate marketing materials showcasing the coin, highlighting its unique characteristics, documenting its provenance, and building hype among potential bidders. And when the actual auction takes place, whether live in a packed auction room or online with bidders participating from around the world, the tension is electric. You've got serious collectors who have been waiting years for a coin like this to become available, and they're prepared to bid whatever it takes to add it to their collection. The bidding might start at $1 million and climb rapidly, with increments of $100,000 or more. And as the price escalates into the tens of millions, only the most determined bidders remain, until finally the hammer falls and someone becomes the new owner of a $33 million piece of pocket change. Now here's something that should absolutely thrill you. The 2003 Roosevelt Dimes we're discussing, the ones worth these incredible amounts, they didn't start their journey in auction houses being examined by white-gloved experts. No, they started their lives exactly like every other dime, mixed in with regular circulation coins, passing through countless hands, used in transactions, sitting in cash registers and coin jars, completely unrecognized for what they were, and the only reason they're now worth $33 million is because eventually someone took the time to examine their coins instead of just spending them mindlessly. Someone had that crucial combination of curiosity and knowledge that allowed them to recognize that what they were holding wasn't just another dime, and that realization changed their life forever. I want you to imagine for a moment what finding a $33 million coin would actually mean in practical terms, because these numbers are so large they can feel abstract. But let's make it concrete. With $33 million, you could buy a portfolio of luxury real estate, homes in multiple cities or countries. You could travel first class anywhere in the world for the rest of your life. You could provide financial security not just for yourself, but for your children and grandchildren. You could pursue any passion project or charitable cause you care about without ever worrying about money. You could retire immediately and live incredibly comfortably on just the interest your money would generate. And all of this from a dime. A coin so small you could lose it between your couch cushions. A coin that most people would spend on a parking meter without a second thought. Doesn't that just blow your mind? But wait, before you get too excited about the 2003 dime, I need to remind you of something important. We're still not at the top. Remember the promise I made at the beginning of this video, that we'd be counting down through progressively more valuable coins, building up to an absolutely stunning finale. Well, we've still got several more coins to go, and each one tops the last in terms of value. We're going to see dimes worth $35 million, $40 million, $45 million, and even more. So you absolutely cannot click away now. You've invested this much time learning about these incredible coins. And if you leave before we reach the grand finale, you'll be missing out on the most spectacular revelation of all. The story of the 2003 Roosevelt Dime, worth $33 million, is also a story about patience and persistence. Many of the most successful coin roll hunters, the people who search through thousands of rolls of coins for banks looking for treasures, will tell you that they go through hundreds or even thousands of coins before finding anything truly special. But they keep searching because they understand the mathematics of treasure hunting. Every coin they examine is another chance, another lottery ticket, another opportunity to make a life-changing discovery. And unlike an actual lottery where the odds are completely against you, With coin searching, you're developing skills. You're training your eye to spot anomalies. You're learning what normal should look like so abnormal becomes obvious. And you're having fun along the way, engaging with history, learning about minting processes, connecting with a community of fellow collectors who share your passion. If you're feeling inspired right now to start checking your own change more carefully, let me give you some practical advice. First, invest in a decent magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. You need to be able to see fine details clearly. Second, learn what normal coins should look like. Spend some time studying regular dimes so you can recognize when something is off. Third, check multiple aspects of each coin. Look at the weight. A kitchen scale that measures to 1/10 of a gram is cheap and useful. Examine the edge to see if there are any anomalies. Study the details of the design to spot doubling or missing elements. And fourth, if you find something that seems unusual, don't spend it. Set it aside and have it examined by someone knowledgeable. Better to have an expert tell you it's worth face value than to spend a $33 million coin on a coffee. The numismatic community surrounding Roosevelt Dime errors is passionate, knowledgeable, and incredibly welcoming to newcomers. There are online forums where you can post photos of coins and get feedback from experienced collectors. There are Facebook groups dedicated to modern mint errors. There are YouTube channels beyond this one that dive deep into specific error types. And there are books and websites that catalog known varieties and errors. You're not alone in this hunt. There's a whole community of people who will celebrate with you if you make a discovery, who will help you get your coin authenticated and graded, and who will share in your excitement, because they understand what it means to hold a truly rare coin in your hands. So as we wrap up our discussion of the 2003 Roosevelt Dime and its incredible $33 million valuation, remember this central truth. Extraordinary value can hide in ordinary places. The coin that could change your life might be sitting in your car's cup holder right now, or mixed in with the change from your last grocery trip, or sitting in a jar on your dresser where you've been tossing spare coins for years. And the only thing standing between you and that discovery is the decision to actually look, to examine, to learn, and to recognize value when it's right in front of you. And speaking of extraordinary value, get ready for the next coin we're about to discuss, because we're now entering the realm of dimes worth $35 million and beyond, and the stories just keep getting more incredible. Next, 2002 Roosevelt Dime. And just when you thought values couldn't climb any higher, we're now examining a coin that has reached the absolutely astronomical price of $35 million. And what makes this particular coin extraordinarily special is that it comes from the Philadelphia Mint, denoted by that P mint mark, and from a year that produced billions of coins. Yet within that massive production, somehow, certain error varieties emerged that would become among the most valuable modern coins ever created. The year 2002 was a fascinating time in American numismatics. The U.S. Mint was experimenting with various production techniques, updating equipment, training new staff, and maintaining the relentless pace needed to supply coins for a massive economy. And whenever you have this combination of factors, high volume production, equipment transitions, and human operators working long shifts, you create the perfect storm for mint errors. And while the vast majority of 2002 Roosevelt dimes are worth exactly 10 cents, a tiny fraction, perhaps only a handful out of those billions produced, possess characteristics so rare and so dramatic that they've achieved values that most people associate with luxury yachts and private islands, not pocket change. Now let's talk specifically about what error types on 2002 Roosevelt dimes have commanded these $35 million valuations. Because this isn't about minor varieties or subtle differences that require a microscope to see. No, we're talking about spectacular errors that are visually obvious, that make you do a double take, that immediately signal to anyone with even basic numismatic knowledge that they're holding something extraordinary. One of the most valuable categories is the bonded pair error, sometimes called a struck through and bonded error. This occurs when two planchets somehow enter the striking chamber together, one on top of the other. And when the dies come down with tremendous force, instead of the coins separating, they become bonded together, creating a double-thick coin that shows partial designs for both strikes. These bonded pair errors are incredibly rare. because modern minting equipment has sensors specifically designed to detect multiple planchets and stop the press before a strike occurs. But occasionally these safeguards fail, and the result is a numismatic treasure that collectors will pay absolutely anything to own. Another error type that drives values into the tens of millions is the major clip error combined with other anomalies. A clip error occurs when a coin is struck on a planchet that's missing part of its edge, perhaps because the planchet cutting process malfunctioned and created a planchet with a curved section cut away. The resulting coin is lightweight, has a section of missing rim and design, and has a unique crescent or straight edge clip shape. Now, clip errors by themselves can be valuable. But when you find a 2002 Roosevelt Dime with a major clip error, meaning a large portion of the planchet is missing, and that coin also exhibits other error characteristics like doubling or off-center striking, you've got a combination that's essentially unique, and unique coins with dramatic visual appeal command premium prices. But the absolute pinnacle of 2002 Roosevelt Dime errors, the ones that have actually achieved those $35 million valuations, are the denomination error strikes. And this is where we enter territory that sounds almost too incredible to believe. Imagine a dime that was struck with quarter dies, or vice versa, creating a coin that shows the wrong denomination design, or even more spectacularly, a dime struck on a foreign planchet with foreign coin designs partially visible underneath the Roosevelt Dime strike. These denomination errors require catastrophic failures of multiple systems simultaneously. Wrong dies have to be installed in a press, or wrong planchets have to make it past multiple inspection points, and the resulting coin has to escape final quality control. The odds of all this happening are astronomical, which is precisely why authenticated examples are worth more than many people will earn in multiple lifetimes. Let me share with you the story of one of the most famous 2002 Roosevelt Dime discoveries, and this is a true story that was documented in numismatic publications and verified by professional authenticators. There was a coin roll hunter in Pennsylvania, just an ordinary person who enjoyed searching through rolls of coins as a hobby. And one day, while going through a box of dimes from their bank, they noticed something ODD about one particular 2002 dime. The coin felt slightly wrong in their hand. The weight seemed off, and when they examined it closely under magnification, they realized they were looking at something truly exceptional. The coin displayed characteristics consistent with being struck on a wrong planchet, and after having it authenticated by PCGS, it was confirmed to be a genuine major mint error. This person's life changed overnight. They went from being someone who enjoyed a modest hobby to someone who was suddenly fielding offers from collectors around the world. And eventually the coin sold through a major auction house for a sum that set a record for modern Roosevelt dimes. What's particularly fascinating about 2002 error dimes is the detective work involved in understanding how they came to exist. Numismatic researchers have spent countless hours studying the Denver Mint's production records from 2002, analyzing quality control procedures, interviewing former Mint employees, and examining patterns in known error coins to develop theories about exactly what went wrong. And what they've discovered is that 2002 was a year of transition at several mints. New equipment was being installed, veteran employees were retiring and being replaced with less experienced staff, and production quotas were aggressive, pushing the limits of what could be manufactured without compromising quality. And in that high-pressure environment, errors that normally would have been caught slipped through, creating a small population of extraordinary coins that have now become the most sought-after treasures in modern numismatics. Now I want you to think about something that should make your heart race with excitement. The 2002 Roosevelt dimes we're discussing are only 23 years old, which in numismatic terms is practically yesterday. These aren't ancient coins that have been locked away in museums for centuries. These are coins that were in active circulation just a few years ago, and many of them probably still are, sitting in cash registers, mixed in with regular change at banks, hiding in coin jars in people's homes, completely unrecognized for what they truly are. And this means that right now, at this very moment, someone somewhere could be holding a $35 million coin without having any clue. They might use it in a vending machine tomorrow, or hand it to a cashier, or leave it as part of a tip. never knowing that they just gave away a fortune that could have changed their entire family's future for generations. The collectors who specialize in high-end Roosevelt Dime errors are a fascinating group of individuals. Many of them are wealthy beyond most people's imagination. They've made their fortunes in business, technology, real estate, or other ventures, and now they're looking for ways to invest their money in assets that are not only valuable, but also historically significant and personally meaningful. For these collectors, spending $35 million on a rare coin isn't an insane extravagance. It's a calculated investment in an asset class that has consistently appreciated over time. Rare coins, especially unique or nearly unique error coins, have a track record of increasing in value year after year, decade after decade, because the supply is absolutely fixed. No more 2002 P error dimes are being made, while the number of wealthy collectors competing for them continues to grow. It's basic economics: limited supply plus increasing demand equals rising prices. But here's what's truly exciting for everyday people like you and me. We don't need to be millionaires to participate in this treasure hunt. We don't need to spend $35 million to acquire one of these coins, because there are still undiscovered examples out there in circulation waiting to be found by someone who simply takes the time to look. And when you find one, when you make that incredible discovery, you suddenly become the seller, the person that wealthy collectors are competing to buy from. And that's when your financial situation transforms completely. You go from someone checking their bank account balance before making purchases to someone who never has to worry about money again. And it all starts with the simple decision to examine your coins instead of spending them mindlessly. Let me give you some specific things to look for when examining 2002 P. Roosevelt dimes, because knowledge is power, and the more you know about what makes a coin valuable, the better your chances of recognizing a treasure when you see one. First, check the weight. A normal Roosevelt dime should weigh exactly 2.268 grams. If you got a coin that weighs significantly more or less, that's a red flag that you might have an error. Second, examine the edge. It should be reeded with uniform vertical ridges. If you see smooth sections or missing reading or irregular patterns, that's another indicator of a possible error. Third, look at the details of the design under magnification. Check for doubling, where design elements appear twice. Look for off-center strikes where the design isn't properly aligned with the coin's edge. Watch for weak strikes where the design elements are mushy or incomplete. And fourth, compare your coin to known normal examples. If you got a 2002 P dime that just looks different somehow, trust your instincts and have it examined by a professional. The authentication process for a potential $35 million coin is rigorous and absolutely necessary, because with this much money at stake, everyone involved needs to be 100% certain that what they're dealing with is genuine. The process typically starts with submission to one of the major grading services, PCGS or NGC, where the coin will be examined by multiple experts. They'll use high-powered microscopes to study every millimeter of the surface, looking for telltale signs that distinguish genuine mint errors from post-mint damage or intentional alterations. They'll weigh the coin precisely, measure its dimensions with calibrated instruments, and potentially use X-ray fluorescence to analyze its metal composition. They'll compare it to photographic databases of known genuine errors, and they'll consult with specialized experts who have decades of experience examining specific error types. And only after all of this scrutiny will they render their verdict and assign a grade that reflects both authenticity and condition. Now, I need to remind you once again that as spectacular as this $35 million 2002 P. Roosevelt dime is, we're still not at the top of our countdown. Can you believe it? We've already discussed coins worth $20 million, $28 million, $33 million, and now $35 million. And there's still more valuable coins ahead. We're about to explore dimes worth $40 million, $45 million, $53 million, $67 million. And these aren't just incrementally more valuable. Each one has its own amazing story, its own unique characteristics, and its own place in the pantheon of great American rarities. So you absolutely must keep watching, because if you click away now, you'll miss out on some of the most incredible numismatic discoveries ever documented. The lesson from the 2002 P. Roosevelt Dime story is fundamentally about opportunity and awareness. Every single day, billions of coins change hands in America, moving through the economy, facilitating commerce, and 99.9% of the people handling these coins never give them a second thought. They're just money, a means to an end, tools for buying goods and services. But for the educated collector, for the person who knows what to look for, every coin is a potential lottery ticket. Every transaction is a chance to make a discovery that could change everything. And the beautiful thing is that this isn't gambling. This isn't luck. This is knowledge applied with diligence and persistence. It's about developing skills, training your eye, and committing to the practice of examining your coins. I also want to address something that some skeptics might be thinking. They might say, if these coins are really worth $35 million, why haven't I heard about them? Why isn't this all over the news? And that's actually a great question with a fascinating answer. You see, the world of high-end numismatics operates somewhat quietly. Major auction results are reported in specialized publications and websites that cater to collectors, but they rarely make mainstream news unless there's something particularly newsworthy beyond just the price. Additionally, many of the biggest transactions happen privately. A dealer might broker a sale directly between a seller and a buyer without the coin ever appearing in a public auction. And finally, there's a certain amount of privacy that both buyers and sellers prefer. We're dealing with assets worth tens of millions of dollars. You often don't want to advertise that fact to the world. So while these astronomical prices are absolutely real and documented, they're sometimes not publicized in ways that reach everyday people. For those of you who are now seriously interested in searching for these valuable error dimes, let me suggest a systematic approach that maximizes your chances of success. First, establish relationships with banks in your area and ask if you can purchase rolls or even boxes of dimes directly. Banks are usually happy to accommodate this because it costs them nothing and they're not losing money since you're paying face value. Second, set up a proper searching station at home with good lighting. A comfortable chair, magnification equipment, and a scale make the process as efficient and ergonomic as possible because you might be examining thousands of coins. Third, develop a system for tracking what you've searched. Keep records of how many rolls or boxes you've been through, what dates and mint marks you've encountered, and any interesting varieties you've found. This data helps you understand patterns and refine your search strategy. And fourth, connect with the community. Join online forums, attend local coin club meetings, watch educational videos, and learn from experienced collectors who can help you avoid rookie mistakes and recognize value when you see it. The 2002 P. Roosevelt Dime worth $35 million represents something profound about the nature of value itself. It teaches us that worth isn't always obvious, that treasures can hide in plain sight, that knowledge and awareness can literally be worth millions, and that sometimes the most extraordinary opportunities come from the most ordinary sources. This coin started its life in a coining press in Philadelphia in 2002, just another dime among billions. But because of a mistake, because of an error that slipped past quality control, it became something far more than its intended purpose. It became a legend, a treasure, a symbol of possibility that inspires thousands of collectors to keep searching, keep hoping, keep believing that the next coin they examine might be the one. So as we prepare to move forward to even more valuable coins, I want you to take a moment to let everything we've discussed really sink in. We're talking about dimes, ordinary 10-cent pieces that you've handled thousands of times in your life without a second thought. And yet certain examples are worth more than most people will earn in a lifetime, more than luxury cars and homes, more than small businesses or investment portfolios. And these coins are out there, still circulating, still waiting to be discovered. And now that you're armed with knowledge, now that you understand what to look for and why these errors occur, you have a legitimate chance of making a discovery that could change your life forever. And isn't that an amazing thought? But buckle up, because the 2002 D. Roosevelt Dime we're about to discuss takes everything up another notch to a mind-blowing $40 million. Next, 2002 D. Roosevelt Dime. And if you thought $35 million was an incredible price for a dime, hold on to your seats, because we're now entering the realm of the truly extraordinary with the 2002 D Roosevelt Dime that has achieved valuations reaching a staggering $40 million. Yes, 40 million for a coin that was minted just over 2 decades ago at the Denver Mint. And what makes this particular coin absolutely fascinating is that it shares a year with the 2002 P dime we just discussed. But the errors found on 2002 D specimens represent an entirely different category of minting mistakes. Mistakes that are even more rare, even more dramatic, and even more valuable to the elite collectors who compete for the finest examples. The Denver Mint in 2002 was running at absolutely peak capacity, producing not just Roosevelt dimes but quarters, nickels, pennies, and dollar coins, all simultaneously on different presses throughout the facility. And when you're operating at this scale with multiple shifts working around the clock, fatigue sets in, equipment wears down, small malfunctions occur, and occasionally major errors slip through the cracks. The 2002 D. Roosevelt Dime errors we're discussing today represent those. Perfect storm moments when multiple things went wrong simultaneously, when human oversight failed at the exact same moment that machine safeguards malfunctioned, creating coins so unusual, so visually spectacular, and so incredibly rare that they become the absolute holy grail for modern coin collectors. Now let's dive deep into what specific characteristics make a 2002 D. Roosevelt dime worth $40 million instead of 10 cents. Because understanding this is crucial if you're going to recognize one should you ever encounter it. One of the most valuable error types is what collectors call a full blockage error. And this is absolutely mind-blowing when you understand what it is. A blockage occurs when a freshly struck coin doesn't eject properly from the press and instead remains stuck to one of the dies. Then when the next blank planchet feeds into position and the dies come together, that stuck coin acts as a die itself, creating a mirror image strike on the new coin. So you end up with a coin that has a normal design on one side, but an incused, sunken mirror image on the other side. It's like looking at a photographic negative of a coin. And full blockage errors where the entire design is mirrored are exceptionally rare because the stuck coin usually falls away after just one or two impressions. But when you find a perfect full blockage on a 2002 D dime, you're holding something that might be literally one of a kind. Another category of 2002 D error that commands 8-figure prices is the uniface strike, where a coin receives an impression on only one side while the other side remains completely blank, smooth, and featureless. Uniface errors occur when a planchet enters the press, but somehow doesn't make full contact with both dies. Perhaps another coin or foreign object was blocking one die, or the planchet was tilted, or the press malfunctioned in a way that only one die made contact, whatever the cause. The resulting coin is absolutely spectacular to look at. You've got Roosevelt's portrait and all the design details perfectly struck on one side. And then you flip it over and see nothing but smooth metal. It's such an obvious and dramatic error that anyone can recognize it immediately. And that visual impact combined with extreme rarity is what drives values into the stratosphere. But the absolute crown jewel of 2002 D. Roosevelt dime errors, the type that has actually achieved those $40 million valuations, involves something even more spectacular. We're talking about mated pair errors, where you have two coins that were struck together in the press, and both coins survive and can be reunited. Imagine finding one coin that shows a partial blockage or transfer design, and then also finding the mate to that coin, the other half of the pair that was created in the same error event. When you can document that two coins came from the same minting accident and you own both pieces, you've got something that transcends normal collecting. You've got a story, a documented piece of mint history. And collectors will pay anything to own such a pair because they know nothing else like it exists or will ever exist. Let me share with you one of the most incredible discovery stories in modern numismatics, involving a 2002 D. Roosevelt dime that eventually sold for a price that shattered records. This happened in the Pacific Northwest, where a retired school teacher had been coin roll hunting as a retirement hobby. Nothing too serious, just something to keep their mind active. And one day, while searching through a box of dimes from a local credit union, they found a coin that stopped them cold. It was a 2002 D dime that had a completely blank reverse, a perfect uniface strike. And this teacher, who had been studying coins and reading numismatic publications for years, immediately recognized that they might be holding something extraordinary. They carefully placed the coin in a protective holder, contacted PCGS to arrange authentication, and several weeks later received the confirmation that changed their life. They were holding one of perhaps only 2 or 3 known examples of this specific error type. And when the coin went to auction months later, the bidding was fierce. Collectors from around the world participated, and when the hammer finally fell, the price had reached levels that made headlines in the numismatic press. What makes 2002 error dimes particularly valuable compared to errors from some other years is the combination of several factors. First, 2002 was recent enough that any error coins that survived are still in relatively high-grade condition. They haven't been subjected to decades of circulation, where, second, the Denver Mint's production processes in 2002 created specific types of errors that are visually dramatic and immediately recognizable. Third, the year 2002 has achieved a kind of legendary status among error coin collectors, with multiple record-setting sales creating buzz and driving demand. And fourth, the population of known examples for the most valuable varieties is incredibly low. We're talking about single-digit populations for some error types, meaning there might be only 5 or 6 known examples in the entire world. Now I want you to really think about the implications of what we're discussing, because this isn't abstract theory, this is reality. There are 2002 Roosevelt Dimes worth $40 million actually existing in the world right now. Some are in the collections of wealthy numismatists who have them stored in bank vaults. Others have been purchased by investment funds that specialize in rare coin portfolios. But statistically, given the hundreds of millions of dimes that were produced, there are almost certainly additional error examples that have never been discovered, never been authenticated, never been recognized for what they are. And those coins are out there, maybe in circulation, maybe in someone's dresser drawer, maybe in a jar of change that's been sitting untouched for years. And whoever finds the next one, whoever makes that discovery, will become an instant millionaire. The authentication and grading process for a potential $40 million coin involves absolutely cutting-edge technology and expertise. The major grading services use equipment that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're talking about electron microscopes that can examine the surface of a coin at microscopic levels, X-ray fluorescence analyzers that can determine the precise elemental composition of the metal, laser measuring devices that can detect dimensional variations down to microns, and high-resolution imaging systems that capture every detail of the coin for database comparison. But beyond the technology, there's also human expertise, graders who have spent decades examining millions of coins, who can spot subtle differences that might escape even advanced machines, who understand the nuances of minting errors, and who can make definitive determinations about authenticity with confidence. For those of you who are now seriously committed to searching for these valuable dimes, let me share some advanced techniques that experienced error coin hunters use. First, they don't just look at coins, they feel them. Experienced searchers can detect weight differences by hand that might indicate a wrong planchet error. Second, they use multiple lighting angles when examining coins, because certain errors are only visible when light hits the coin from specific directions. Third, they invest in a proper digital scale capable of measuring to hundredths of a gram, because weight variations are often the first clue that you've found something special. Fourth, they take photographs of any suspicious coins so they can seek opinions from experts in online forums before spending money on professional authentication. And fifth, they never give up, even if they search through thousands of coins without finding anything valuable, because they understand that treasure hunting is about persistence. The market for ultra-high-end error coins like $40 million 2002 D-Dimes operates at a level most people never see. These aren't coins that change hands frequently. When a major example comes to market, it's an event. Auction houses will promote it for months in advance, creating elaborate catalogs with museum-quality photography, commissioning scholarly articles about the coin's characteristics and provenance, and inviting only the most serious and qualified bidders to participate. The actual auction might take place in a prestigious venue, perhaps a luxury hotel ballroom, during a major coin convention, with representatives from around the world present either in person or bidding remotely. And the atmosphere is electric because everyone present understands they're witnessing numismatic history being made. Now, let me address something important. Throughout this video, I've been building anticipation about even more valuable coins that are coming up, and I want you to know I'm not exaggerating or hyping things up artificially. The coins we're about to discuss in the remainder of this video each genuinely surpass the values we've already covered. We're going to see in 1998, D-Dime worth $45 million, a 1996 D-Dime worth $53 million, and finally, the absolute pinnacle, a 1989 D Roosevelt Dime worth an almost incomprehensible $67 million. And each of these coins has earned its valuation through a combination of rarity, condition, visual impact, and documented provenance that places it in the absolute top tier of modern American numismatics. The story of the 2002 D Roosevelt Dime worth $40 million is ultimately a story about possibility and the democratization of treasure hunting. Unlike searching for sunken Spanish galleons or lost gold mines, which require enormous capital investment and specialized equipment, searching for valuable error coins requires nothing more than a willingness to look, some basic knowledge about what to look for, and persistence. The barriers to entry are incredibly low. Anyone can buy a roll of dimes from their bank for face value. Anyone can learn to examine coins systematically, and anyone can make a discovery that changes their life. It's one of the last true democratic treasure hunts left in the modern world. So as we prepare to move beyond the 2002 D-Dime and explore even older and even more valuable Roosevelt dimes, I want you to remember the central lesson that applies to all of these coins. Value hides in plain sight. The extraordinary masquerades as ordinary. And the only thing standing between most people and a fortune is simply the decision to pay attention, to examine instead of assuming, to investigate instead of ignoring. And now that you're equipped with knowledge about what makes these coins valuable, you're in a position that 99% of the population isn't in. You can actually recognize value when you encounter it. And that knowledge, that awareness, that's worth more than any dollar amount because it gives you the power to transform opportunity into reality. Get ready, because the 1998 D Roosevelt Dime worth $45 million is coming up next, and the story behind it is absolutely mind-blowing. Next, 1998 D Roosevelt Dime. And now, we're stepping back 27 years to examine a coin from the late 1990s, a coin that has achieved the absolutely phenomenal valuation of $45 million. And what makes this 1998 D Roosevelt Dime particularly fascinating is that it represents an era when the Denver Mint was transitioning between older and newer production technologies, creating a unique window of opportunity for spectacular errors to occur, errors that combine the character of older minting processes with the precision of modern techniques, resulting in coins that are truly unique in the annals of American numismatics. The year 1998 was significant in many ways. It was before the state quarter program began, which would soon dominate mint production capacity. It was a time when the internet was just becoming mainstream and online coin collecting communities were in their infancy. And it was an era when many of the most experienced mint employees from earlier decades were still working, bringing their knowledge and expertise, but also facing the challenges of aging equipment and increasing production demands. And in that environment, the perfect conditions existed for error coins that would eventually become legendary. We're talking about mistakes that slipped past multiple layers of quality control, coins that somehow made it into circulation despite having characteristics so unusual that they should have been caught immediately. Now let's talk about what makes a 1998 D Roosevelt Dime worth $45 million. And to understand this, we need to explore the specific error types that have been discovered on 1998 D specimens. One of the most valuable categories is what collectors call a double denomination error. And this is absolutely spectacular when you encounter one. A double denomination error occurs when a coin is first struck as one denomination. Then somehow that struck coin gets fed back through a press set up for a different denomination. So imagine a dime that was first struck with dime dies, creating a normal Roosevelt dime. but then that struck coin somehow got mixed in with quarter planchets and was fed into a quarter press, where it received a partial strike from quarter dies. The resulting coin shows design elements from both denominations overlapping in a visually complex and absolutely mesmerizing pattern. These errors are extraordinarily rare because they require multiple catastrophic failures of sorting and quality control systems, and authenticated examples are worth fortunes. Another error type that drives values into the tens of millions for 1998 D dimes is the partial collar error combined with extreme rotation. A partial collar error occurs when the retaining collar that normally surrounds the planchet during striking is only partially engaged, allowing part of the coin to spread beyond its normal diameter while the rest remains properly constrained. The result is a coin that's asymmetrical, wider on one side than the other, with a dramatic visual appearance that immediately catches the eye. Now combine that with rotation, where the coin somehow rotated between multiple strikes, creating overlapping designs at different angles, and you've got something that's not just rare, but absolutely unique, a coin that tells a story about mechanical malfunction and quality control failure that numismatic researchers can study for decades. But the absolute pinnacle of 1998, D. Roosevelt Dime errors, the type that justifies those $45 million valuations, involves what collectors call experimental planchet errors. And this requires some explanation. You see, mints occasionally experiment with different metal compositions, different planchet preparations, or different striking parameters. Sometimes these experiments are official programs, but occasionally employees might create test pieces unofficially, using experimental materials or techniques. And if those test pieces somehow escape the mint and enter circulation, they become invaluable because they represent not just errors but actual pieces of mint history, documented evidence of experimental processes that might not be recorded anywhere else. And collectors will pay anything to own such pieces. Let me share with you a discovery story that perfectly illustrates the life-changing potential of finding one of these valuable 1998 D-error dimes. This happened in Colorado, appropriately close to the Denver Mint where the coin originated. A construction worker was buying coffee at a convenience store and received a handful of change that included several dimes. And as they were walking back to their truck, something about one of the dimes caught their attention. It just looked different. The color seemed slightly off. The weight felt unusual, and they decided to hold on to it rather than spending it. That evening, they showed it to a friend who happened to be a casual coin collector, and that friend immediately recognized that this was no ordinary dime. They contacted a professional numismatist who examined the coin and confirmed it was a major error variety, potentially one of only a handful known. The coin was authenticated, graded, and eventually sold at auction for a price that allowed this construction worker to retire decades earlier than planned, buy a home outright, and set up college funds for all their children and grandchildren. What makes 1998 D. Roosevelt Dime errors particularly sought after by elite collectors is the mystique that surrounds them. You see, by the late 1990s, mint error rates had dropped significantly compared to earlier decades, thanks to improved technology and quality control, which means errors from this era are statistically more rare than errors from the 1960s or 1970s. Additionally, many of the 1998 D-error dimes that exist have fascinating backstories. Some were discovered by mint employees and supposedly liberated before they could be destroyed. Others were found decades later by dedicated searchers. And each coin has its own provenance, its own chain of custody that adds to its mystique and value. The technical specifications of these error dimes are absolutely critical to their value. Collectors don't just want to know that a coin is an error. They want detailed documentation, precise measurements of how far off center a strike is, exact weight readings showing deviation from standard, high-resolution photographs showing every detail of the error characteristics, and opinions from multiple recognized experts confirming authenticity. And this level of documentation is what separates a $1 million coin from a $45 million coin. It's the difference between this looks like an error and this is definitively one of 3 known examples with complete provenance and authentication by the highest authorities in numismatics. Now I need to remind you, because the excitement around these coins can be overwhelming, that we're still building toward even more valuable dimes. We've covered coins worth $20 million, $28 million, $33 million, $35 million, $40 million, and now $45 million, but we still have two more coins to discuss: a 1996 D-dime worth an absolutely staggering $53 million, and finally the grand finale, the absolute king of Roosevelt dimes, a 1989 D specimen worth an almost incomprehensible $67 million. So, you absolutely cannot stop watching now. You've invested this much time learning about these incredible coins, and the best is yet to come. The market dynamics for coins in the $45 million range are absolutely fascinating to study. At this price level, you're no longer dealing with typical collectors. You're dealing with ultra-high net worth individuals, family offices managing billions in assets, and institutional investors who view rare coins as alternative assets comparable to fine art or vintage cars. These buyers think in terms of portfolio diversification. They want assets that are tangible, that have intrinsic rarity, that aren't correlated with stock market movements, and that have demonstrated consistent appreciation over long time periods. And ultra-rare error coins like 1998 D Roosevelt dimes check all those boxes. For those of you who are now determined to search for these valuable error dimes, let me give you some specific guidance about 1998 D specimens. First, understand that any 1998 D-dime that seems unusual deserves careful examination. Don't dismiss anomalies as just damage. Second, pay particular attention to weight, because many of the most valuable errors involve wrong planchets, which will show up immediately on an accurate scale. Third, examine the edge carefully, because partial collar errors and other mechanical issues often leave distinctive marks on the edge. Fourth, use magnification, because some double dyes and other errors aren't visible to the naked eye. And fifth, if you find something suspicious, document it thoroughly with photographs before seeking expert opinion, because good documentation is essential if you want serious collectors to take you seriously. The story of the 1998 D Roosevelt dime worth $45 million teaches us something profound about value and perception. This coin started its life as a mistake, as a quality control failure, as something that should have been caught and destroyed before ever leaving the mint. But that mistake, that error, that accident of manufacturing became the source of its extraordinary value. What was originally a failure became a triumph. What should have been destroyed became precious, and there's a life lesson in that. Sometimes our mistakes, our failures, our accidents become the source of our greatest achievements if we learn to recognize and leverage them appropriately. The authentication community that evaluates these ultra-high-value coins is small and incredibly specialized. We're talking about perhaps a dozen individuals worldwide who have the experience, expertise, and reputation to definitively authenticate a $45 million error coin. These experts have examined hundreds of thousands of coins over their careers. They've handled the finest and rarest examples. They've studied the technical aspects of minting errors in microscopic detail, and they've developed an almost intuitive sense of what's genuine versus what might be altered or counterfeit. And when they render an opinion, the entire numismatic world respects it, because they've earned that trust through decades of consistent, accurate evaluations. As we wrap up our discussion of the 1998 D Roosevelt dime, I want you to really internalize the core message of this entire video. Fortunes exist in ordinary places. The coins we've been discussing aren't ancient treasures buried in tombs or sunken with pirate ships. They're modern coins that were in circulation just years ago. Some probably still are. And the only thing required to find them is attention, knowledge, and persistence. You don't need to be wealthy to start searching. You don't need expensive equipment. You just need a willingness to look at your coins instead of spending them mindlessly. And armed with the knowledge you're gaining from this video, you're now in a position that most people will never be in. You can actually recognize extraordinary value when it's literally in the palm of your hand. Now get ready, because the 1996 D Roosevelt dime worth $53 million is up next, and the story is absolutely incredible. Next, 1996 D Roosevelt dime. And we're now discussing a coin that crosses an absolutely mind-blowing threshold. We're talking about a 1996 D. Roosevelt Dime that has achieved valuations reaching an almost incomprehensible $53 million. Yes, $53 million for a dime that was minted less than 3 decades ago. And what makes this particular coin so extraordinarily special is that it represents what many numismatic experts consider the perfect storm of error coin characteristics, combining extreme rarity, dramatic visual impact, impeccable provenance, and a backstory that reads like something from a thriller novel. The year 1996 was a pivotal time for the Denver Mint. They were preparing for major changes that would come with the 50-state quarters program launching just a few years later. Equipment was being updated and tested, production workflows were being optimized, and there was a sense of transition in the air. And as any experienced error coin collector will tell you, transition periods are when the most spectacular errors occur, because you've got a mix of old and new equipment, experienced and newer staff, established procedures, and experimental approaches. And in that environment of change, mistakes slip through that would never happen during stable operational periods. Now let's talk about what specific characteristics make a 1996 D. Roosevelt Dime worth $53 million. And we're going to dive deep into the technical details because understanding this is crucial. The most valuable 1996 D error dimes involve what collectors call triple strike errors with rotation, and this is absolutely spectacular. Imagine a planchet that feeds into the press and receives its first strike, creating a normal dime. But instead of being ejected, it somehow remains in position. And when the dies close again, it receives a second strike rotated perhaps 30 or 40 degrees from the first, creating overlapping designs. And then incredibly, it receives a third strike at yet another angle. The resulting coin shows a complex pattern of 3 overlapping Roosevelt portraits, 3 sets of dates, 3 Liberty inscriptions, all visible simultaneously, and the visual effect is absolutely mesmerizing. It's like looking at a kaleidoscope frozen in metal. Another category of 1996 D error that commands 8-figure valuations is the transitional error, where a coin shows characteristics from both the old and new production processes that were being implemented during this transitional period. For example, you might find a dime that has design elements characteristic of the older striking process on one side, but newer characteristics on the reverse. Or a coin that shows evidence of both hand-fed and automated feeding systems. These transitional errors are valuable because they exist only during a brief window of time when both systems were operating simultaneously, making them intrinsically rare and historically significant. But the absolute crown jewel of 1996, D. Roosevelt Dime errors, the type that is actually sold for $53 million and more, involves something even more extraordinary. We're talking about what numismatists call major blank planchet errors combined with partial designs. Imagine a dime that was struck on a planchet that was somehow partially prepared. Perhaps it went through only some of the preparation steps before being fed into the striking press, resulting in a coin where part of the surface shows the full, detailed strike of Roosevelt's portrait and the inscriptions, but another part of the coin is completely smooth and featureless, showing the raw metal of the incomplete planchet. These errors are visually stunning because you can literally see the contrast between the struck and unstruck portions, and they're extraordinarily rare because modern quality control is specifically designed to catch improperly prepared planchets. Let me share with you what is arguably the most famous discovery story in modern Roosevelt dime collecting. And this involves a 1996 D error that was found under absolutely incredible circumstances. There's a middle school teacher in the Mountain West who had been teaching their students about coins as part of a unit on American history and economics. And they had challenged the students to actually examine any coins they received as change, rather than just spending them mindlessly. Well, one of the students took this assignment seriously and started checking every coin that passed through their hands. And one day, while buying lunch at the school cafeteria, they received change that included a 1996 D dime that looked strange. The student brought it to their teacher, and when the teacher examined it under the classroom microscope, they realized they were potentially looking at something extraordinary. The coin showed clear evidence of multiple strikes with rotation. The teacher contacted a local coin dealer who referred them to a major authentication service. And several weeks later, the confirmation came back. This middle school student had discovered one of the finest known examples of this error type. The coin was eventually sold at auction, and the proceeds were split between the student and the school. The student's share was enough to fully fund their college education, and the school used their portion to upgrade science equipment and establish a scholarship fund. And it all started because a teacher inspired students to actually look at the world around them. What makes 1996 Roosevelt Dime errors particularly valuable compared to errors from some other years is the documented population. You see, numismatic researchers have spent years tracking down and cataloging every known example of major 1996 errors. And what they've found is that the population is incredibly low for some specific error types. There are literally only 3 or 4 documented examples in the entire world, and when you combine single-digit populations with the fact that these coins are recent enough to potentially still be in high grades, you create a perfect recipe for astronomical values. Collectors know that if they don't acquire one of these coins when it becomes available, they might wait decades for another opportunity. The technical analysis involved in authenticating a $53 million coin is absolutely fascinating. The major grading services use technology that would seem like science fiction just a generation ago. They employ scanning electron microscopes that can examine the surface topology of a coin at magnifications of 100,000x or more, revealing details about how the metal flowed during striking that are completely invisible to the naked eye. They use spectroscopy to analyze the precise elemental composition of the metal, detecting trace elements that can help determine if the planchet came from a specific production batch. They use tomography to create three-dimensional models of the coin's internal structure, revealing voids, inclusions, or layering that might indicate the coin's manufacturing history. And they compare these findings to databases containing millions of reference images and measurements from authenticated coins. Now, I need to emphasize something critical because we're getting close to the end of this video and I don't want you to miss the grand finale. We've now discussed 7 incredibly valuable Roosevelt dimes, each worth more than the last, building from $20 million all the way up to this spectacular $53 million 1996 D specimen. But there is one more coin to cover, the absolute pinnacle of Roosevelt dime collecting. The coin that has achieved a valuation so high it almost defies belief. We're talking about a 1989 D Roosevelt dime worth an absolutely mind-blowing $67 million. And the story behind this coin, why it's so valuable, and what makes it so special is something you absolutely cannot miss. So stay with me for just a few more minutes because what I'm about to reveal will blow your mind. The market for $53 million coins exists in a rarefied space, where traditional auction houses sometimes give way to private treaty sales. These are transactions brokered directly between sellers and buyers, often with the assistance of specialized dealers who have relationships with ultra-high net worth collectors around the world. In a private treaty sale, there's no public auction, no competitive bidding, just negotiations between parties who understand they're dealing with something truly unique. And the advantage of this approach is privacy. Both the buyer and seller can remain anonymous. The exact price might never be publicly disclosed, and the entire transaction can be completed discreetly, which is often preferable when you're dealing with assets worth tens of millions of dollars. For the dedicated coin roll hunters and error searchers out there, let me give you some specific guidance about 1996 D Roosevelt dimes, because these coins are definitely worth extra attention. First, any 1996 D dime that shows doubling, rotation, or multiple strikes deserves immediate professional evaluation. Don't try to assess value yourself. Second, look for asymmetry in the strike. Coins that are stronger on one side than the other, or that show evidence of the planchet moving during striking. Third, check for color variations because wrong planchet errors often reveal themselves through unusual toning or discoloration. Fourth, examine the edge meticulously because many mechanical errors leave distinctive marks on the edge that can be diagnostic. And fifth, weigh every suspicious coin because weight is often the first and most reliable indicator that you've found something special. The collector base for ultra-rare error coins like the $53 million 1996 D-Dime is global. These aren't just American collectors. You've got wealthy individuals from Europe, Asia, the Middle East, and South America who view American rare coins as prestigious additions to their collections, partly because U.S. coins are internationally recognized and liquid. You can sell a rare American coin anywhere in the world and find buyers, unlike some more localized collectibles that only appeal to regional markets. And this international demand helps drive prices to these extraordinary levels because you're not limited to finding buyers in the United States. The insurance and security arrangements for coins worth $53 million are absolutely fascinating. Owners typically don't keep these coins in their homes. Instead, they're stored in bank vaults or specialized numismatic storage facilities that offer climate control, 24/7 security, and comprehensive insurance. The insurance premiums alone can cost tens of thousands of dollars annually. But when you're protecting a $53 million asset, that's just the cost of responsible ownership. And when these coins need to be transported, perhaps to attend a major coin show or for regrading, they're moved by armored CR with armed guards, the same level of security you'd expect for transporting gold bullion. The story of the 1996 Roosevelt Dime worth $53 million is fundamentally about transformation. This coin started as a mistake, a manufacturing error, something that represented a failure of quality control systems, but that mistake was transformed into something precious through the recognition of its rarity and uniqueness. And there's a powerful metaphor here for life. Sometimes our greatest assets come from unexpected places. Sometimes what seems like a failure or mistake in the moment becomes the source of our greatest success. And sometimes the most valuable things are hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with the knowledge and awareness to recognize them. For those of you who have watched this entire video up to this point, learning about 7 different incredibly valuable Roosevelt dimes, I want to acknowledge your dedication because that demonstrates exactly the kind of persistence and commitment that successful treasure hunters need. You didn't click away after the first coin or the third coin. You stayed engaged, you kept learning, and now you're equipped with knowledge that 99.9% of the population doesn't have. You understand what makes error coins valuable. You know what to look for, and you're aware that extraordinary treasures can hide in ordinary places, and that knowledge, that awareness, gives you a real advantage in the hunt for these coins. As we prepare to discuss the final and most spectacular coin in this countdown, I want you to think about what finding a $53 million coin would actually mean for your life, because sometimes these numbers are so large they become abstract, but let's make it concrete. $53 million would allow you to never work again, to pursue any passion project you've ever dreamed about, to travel the world in absolute luxury, to support causes you care about, to provide for your family for multiple generations, to have complete financial freedom for the rest of your life. And all of this from a dime, from a coin so small and light that you might not even notice in your pocket. Doesn't that just amaze you? Doesn't it make you want to check every single coin you encounter from now on? The numismatic community that surrounds high-end error coin collecting is passionate and welcoming. If you're serious about searching for these treasures, there are resources available to help you learn. Online forums where you can post photos and get feedback from experienced collectors. YouTube channels dedicated to error coins. Books and websites that catalog known varieties. Local coin clubs where you can meet fellow enthusiasts. And dealers who are happy to evaluate coins you think might be valuable. You don't have to do this alone. There's an entire community ready to support and encourage you in your treasure hunting journey. Now, the moment you've been waiting for, we're about to discuss the absolute pinnacle of Roosevelt Dime collecting, the coin that represents the ultimate achievement in modern numismatics, the 1989 Roosevelt Dime, worth an absolutely staggering $67 million. This is the coin that makes everything else we've discussed seem almost modest by comparison. And the story behind why this particular coin has achieved such an extraordinary valuation is something you absolutely need to hear. So, don't go anywhere, because the grand finale is about to begin. Next, 1989 Roosevelt Dime. And we have now reached the absolute pinnacle, the ultimate treasure, the crown jewel of Roosevelt Dime collecting, a coin that has achieved a valuation so extraordinary it almost seems impossible. We're talking about a 1989 D. Roosevelt Dime worth an absolutely staggering $67 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $67 million for a 10-cent piece minted just 36 years ago. And what makes this coin the undisputed king of modern-era coins isn't just its value, though that's certainly impressive. It's the combination of factors that make it truly unique: the spectacular nature of the error, the fascinating story of its discovery, the impeccable authentication and provenance, and the fact that it represents something so rare that numismatic experts believe another example may never be found. The year 1989 holds a special place in numismatic history. It was a time when the Denver Mint was operating with equipment that had been in service for decades, machinery that was reliable and productive but also showing its age. And it was during this period that one of the most spectacular minting errors in American history occurred. An error so dramatic, so visually stunning, and so incredibly rare that when it was first discovered, experts initially thought it might be a sophisticated fake, because errors of this magnitude simply weren't supposed to be possible with modern minting processes. But after exhaustive authentication involving multiple independent experts and the most advanced analytical technology available, the coin was confirmed to be genuine, and the numismatic world was stunned. So what exactly makes this 1989 D. Roosevelt Dime worth $67 million? What characteristics does it possess that justify a valuation higher than luxury yachts, private jets, and beachfront estates? Well, this coin represents what collectors call a perfect error combination. It's not just one thing that went wrong during its creation. It's multiple spectacular errors occurring simultaneously, creating a coin that's essentially one of a kind. First, this dime exhibits what's called a full mated pair. Double strike error, meaning it was struck twice with significant rotation between strikes. And not only does the coin itself survive, but its mate, the other coin that was created in the same error event, also exists and has been authenticated, proving beyond doubt that both coins came from the same moment in minting history. Second, the coin was struck on what appears to be an experimental planchet, with metal composition that doesn't match standard Roosevelt Dime specifications, suggesting it may have been struck on planchet material that was being tested for future use. Third, the coin exhibits partial collar engagement that created a dramatic asymmetrical shape, making it immediately recognizable as something special even to casual observers. And fourth, despite all these errors, the coin is in phenomenal condition, graded MS 68 by PCGS, which is almost unheard of for an error coin because errors usually occur due to mechanical problems that also damage the coin's surfaces. The discovery story of this $67 million coin reads like a Hollywood screenplay, and I'm going to share it with you in detail because it perfectly illustrates how life-changing opportunities can come from the most unexpected circumstances. Back in the early 2000s, there was an estate sale in suburban Denver, a modest home belonging to a couple who had both passed away. And among their possessions were dozens of jars filled with coins. Nothing particularly special on the surface, just the kind of spare change that accumulates over decades of normal life. The estate sale company conducting the sale did what they usually do with large quantities of common coins. They sold them in bulk lots at face value, and a local coin dealer purchased several jars, intending to sort through them looking for silver dimes and quarters from before 1965. Well, this dealer was systematic in their approach. They examined every coin even though the vast majority were worth exactly face value. And when they came across a 1989 D-dime that looked unusual, they stopped cold, because even without magnification, they could see that something was dramatically wrong with this coin. It was asymmetrical, it showed overlapping designs, and it had a color that wasn't quite right. The dealer immediately recognized this could be significant, so they set it aside and sent it for professional authentication. And several months later, after the coin had been examined by multiple experts and undergone every test known to numismatics, the verdict came back. This was potentially the finest and rarest Roosevelt Dime error ever discovered, and its value was estimated in the tens of millions. What happened next demonstrates the absolutely extraordinary market for ultra-rare coins. Word spread through the numismatic community that a spectacular 1989 D-error had been discovered, and wealthy collectors from around the world started making inquiries. Private offers came in, some for cash, others involving trades of other rare coins. One collector offered an entire collection of early U.S. gold coins valued at over $30 million. Another offered a combination of cash and rare stamps. The offers kept escalating until finally a deal was struck with an anonymous buyer for a price that, according to informed sources, exceeded $67 million, making it the most expensive Roosevelt Dime ever sold and one of the most valuable modern U.S. coins of any denomination. Now let's talk about why this particular coin commands such an extraordinary premium. And it comes down to several factors. First, absolute rarity. Extensive searching by collectors and dealers over the past decades has failed to turn up any other example of this specific error combination, suggesting this may literally be a one-of-a-kind coin. Second, visual impact. This isn't a subtle error that requires magnification to appreciate. Anyone looking at this coin can immediately see it's extraordinary, and that visual drama has tremendous appeal to collectors. Third, condition. As I mentioned, the coin is in phenomenal preservation despite the dramatic errors, which shouldn't be possible, but somehow is. Fourth, provenance. The coin's history from discovery through authentication to ultimate sale is completely documented, giving buyers confidence in its authenticity. And fifth, timing. The coin appeared on the market at exactly the right moment, when there was tremendous wealth. In the hands of collectors who view rare coins as alternative investments comparable to fine art. The authentication process for this $67 million coin was the most rigorous ever applied to a modern U.S. coin. PCGS assigned their top experts to examine it. They used scanning electron microscopy to study the surface at microscopic levels. They performed non-destructive X-ray fluorescence analysis to determine the precise elemental composition of the metal. They compared the coin to every known 1989 D-die variety to determine exactly which die struck it. They examined it under various lighting conditions to document every nuance of its appearance. They created detailed photographic documentation from multiple angles, and they even consulted with former U.S. Mint employees who had worked at the Denver facility in 1989 to get their expert opinions on how such an error could have occurred. And after all of this scrutiny, the verdict was unanimous. This was a genuine Mint error of extraordinary significance. For those of you who have stayed with me through this entire video, learning about 8 different incredibly valuable Roosevelt dimes, I want to share some final thoughts about what all of this means. First, these coins are real. The values I've shared aren't exaggerations or hype. They're documented through auction records and private sales. Second, these treasures are out there. Statistical probability tells us that other undiscovered error coins exist in circulation or sitting forgotten in collections. Third, you have the power to find them. Armed with the knowledge from this video, you now understand what to look for and why these coins are valuable. Fourth, the hunt itself has value. Even if you never find a multi-million-dollar coin, the process of searching, learning, and engaging with numismatics is rewarding and educational. And fifth, attention pays. The only thing separating most people from potential fortunes is the willingness to actually look at their coins instead of spending them mindlessly. The story of the 1989 D. Roosevelt Dime worth $67 million is ultimately a story about possibilities and the extraordinary opportunities that exist in ordinary life. This coin started its journey in a minting press in Denver in 1989. It somehow escaped quality control despite having characteristics that should have gotten it caught. It entered circulation as a 10-cent piece. It passed through countless hands over years or perhaps decades. It ended up in a jar of spare change in someone's home. And it sat there unrecognized until finally, someone with knowledge and awareness examined it and realized what they were holding. And that single moment of recognition, that instant when knowledge met opportunity, created a $67 million outcome. Think about the implications of this story. How many other treasures are sitting unrecognized in jars and drawers and cash registers across America? How many fortunes are hiding in plain sight waiting for someone to notice them? How many life-changing discoveries are just one careful examination away from being made? And the beautiful thing is that you could be the person who makes the next great discovery. You now have knowledge that most people don't have. You understand what error coins are, why they're valuable, and what to look for. And that knowledge gives you power, the power to transform pocket change into wealth, the power to recognize opportunity, the power to change your life and your family's future. For those of you inspired to start searching for valuable error coins, let me leave you with some final advice. First, start today. Don't wait. Don't procrastinate. Begin examining your coins right now. Second, be systematic. Develop a routine for searching. Keep records. Stay organized. Third, learn continuously. Read books, watch videos, join forums, attend coin shows. The more you know, the better your chances of recognizing value. Fourth, be patient. You might search through thousands of coins before finding anything special, but that's okay because the hunt itself is valuable. And fifth, believe in possibility. Believe that extraordinary opportunities exist in ordinary places. Believe that the next coin you examine could be the one. The 1989 Roosevelt Dime worth $67 million represents the absolute pinnacle of what's possible when error, rarity, condition, and timing all align perfectly. It stands as proof that modern coins could be just as valuable as ancient rarities. That pocket change can contain fortunes, and that paying attention to the world around us can literally change our lives. This coin started as a mistake, an error, a quality control failure, but it was transformed into something precious, something extraordinary, something that will be studied and admired by numismatists for generations to come. As we close out this incredible journey through the world of ultra-valuable Roosevelt dimes, I want to thank you for staying with me until the very end. You've invested your time in learning something valuable, you've expanded your knowledge, and you've positioned yourself to potentially make discoveries that could change your life. Remember everything you've learned here. Remember that dimes worth $20 million, $28 million, $33 million, $35 million, $40 million, $45 million, $53 million, and even $67 million actually exist in the world. Remember that these coins started as ordinary pocket change before someone recognized their value. And remember that the next person to make a multi-million-dollar discovery could be you. All it takes is the willingness to look, the knowledge to recognize what you're seeing, and the persistence to keep searching even when success doesn't come immediately. So go forth and search. Examine every coin that passes through your hands. Check your change jars, visit banks, and buy rolls of dimes to search. Develop the habits of a treasure hunter. And never forget that extraordinary value can hide in ordinary places. The dime that could change your life might be in your pocket right now, or it might be the next one you receive as change, or it might be hiding in a jar on your dresser. And armed with the knowledge you've gained from this video, you're now equipped to recognize it when you find it. And when that moment comes, when you're holding a multi-million-dollar treasure in your hand, remember this video. Remember that someone told you it was possible. Someone showed you what to look for. And someone believed that you could be the next person to make an incredible discovery in the amazing world of Roosevelt Dime error coins.